certainly just briefly after 6 p.m. If we're 2 minutes late, we apologize for our lateness, and here we are. I'd like to start with a roll call of our Climate Action Commission for this evening, please.
Commissioner Fogelberg. Here. Commissioner Heinerman.
Here.
Commissioner McCloskey.
Here.
Commissioner Ward. Here. Vice Chair Conlon.
Here.
Chair Morrell.
Here.
Thank you. And I would like to point out that Youth Member Castro and Commissioner Shapiro-Nathan are absent from this evening's meeting.
Thank you very much. I'd like to next, as chair, request a motion to approve the agenda as published by the city.
So moved.
So second.
I have a motion and second to approve this evening's agenda as published. Is there any discussion of this motion? Seeing no hands arise, I'd call for a vote, please.
Commissioner Fogelberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Heinerman.
Aye.
Commissioner McCloskey.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward. Aye. Vice Chair Conlon.
Yes.
Chair Morrell.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. At this time, I'm going to read the official statement about comments from the public. The standards, for those who've heard it before, the standard statement. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that members of the public keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Would we be allowing any comments from the public electronically?
No, we don't do
In
that
which
anymore.
case, not seeing any members of the public, unless any commissioner objects, I will cease reading the rest of the well-familiarized statement. Seeing no objection, I will so do. The next action item, any changes or edits we're going to look at the consent calendar for this evening's agenda. The first item has to do with the minutes of the previous meeting. Have there been any changes or edits that fellow commissioners have to the published minutes? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar motion.
I move.
I have a motion. Is there a second from the commission?
Second, that's Philip with one L, Heinerman.
Philip with one L and one H, Heineman?
Two H's. One in the first and one in the last.
Yes, one in each segment thereof.
Just a subtle correction of the minutes.
Thank you. So we have minutes approved. Do we have time for a roll call vote on the motion as made and officially seconded?
Commissioner Fogelberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Heinerman.
Aye.
Commissioner McCloskey.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Vice Chair Conlon.
Aye.
Chair Morrell.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're now moving to the official items for discussion this evening. The first has to do with action item 3.1, climate action strategies and their current status and their upcoming implementation, hopefully, of the action items. What do we need to read in the way of the details for this item in order to get to the discussion? It's, of course, a lengthy document.
It is a lengthy document. There's nothing that you need to read, so I was just going to provide an update and also invited our Public Works Director, Mike Berger, to give a presentation as well on our Go Sonoma. So we are trying to get something up on the screen that's not up yet. Do you guys have anything on your screens?
We remain patient here on the dais. It appears to be starting. No, the appearance was incorrect. It's coming on now, up here,
All right.
and maybe up there, can't see.
It is. So what's most important, since we don't really have public, is that you guys can see it. So one of the main beginning parts of our items is talking about expanding our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, which is why I invited the Public Works Director, Mike Berger, to present on the Go Sonoma project, because we did complete our update to the active transportation plan, which was approved by City Council this year. But part of that is, obviously implementing projects around our active transportation plan. And so I wanted to give Mr. Berger an opportunity to present on implementation of what was our prior active transportation plan with that Go Sonoma project funding. And so with that, I am going, since it's the first item, I'm going to hand that off to him, and then we will get into the rest of the items on our list. So there you go.
Jennifer, thank you. And
Thank you, Mike, for being here with us.
well, I want to thank the commission for giving me the opportunity to come tonight and discuss a little bit the current update on we call it the Go Sonoma project, but it is the Citywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvements Project, and that CIPT 6 is just the name that we give it in Public Works because it is part of our capital improvement program. Jennifer, what TV do I point to?
Right here.
Thanks. Do I have to turn it? Oh, I have to turn it on first. Yeah, okay. And so just to give you a real quick update, and this will be brief. I don't expect this presentation to take more than 5 minutes, but here's our agenda. We're going to go over current project status tonight, funding, project elements, and where to find project updates. The project status currently is this contract was awarded to our consultant engineering firm, GHD, in September. Currently, we just received the 65% design submittal, and the next steps are going to include comments from the city, possible revisions, and moving forward to a 90% design completion. The funding for the project, this is part of a Go Sonoma tax measure, quarter-cent sales tax, previously called Measure M. City of Sonoma was awarded a competitive grant by the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. There's a lot of numbers here. I'm going to be going over a lot of numbers on the project. These two are, one of them is very important, and that's the $1.6 million, which is our grant. And to get that grant, we have a 15% match. And we're actually going to end up paying more than 15% of this because the project's going to cost more than $1.6 million to design and build and do the construction management. Projects eligible for this funding must be incorporated into our comprehensive transportation plan or our active transportation plan. Here's a few more numbers for you, just in case those weren't enough. Currently, we're working with GHD, like I said, for a $382,000 design contract. The first opinion of probable cost for the project that we got was $2.9 million. And basically, just to go back, $1.6 million of grant funds. Currently, the project's budgeted at $2.9 million. And then when you add in $350,000 for construction management, that comes up to $3.3 million. So as you can see, we've got plenty of things to spend money on, and currently we're working with Sonoma County to do scope revisions to get the project down a little lower so that the grant is covering a higher percentage of it. Some of the project elements that are included, we have raised crosswalk and crosswalk enhancements at Unit-Bracero Drive on the bike trail, crosswalk enhancements at Robinson Road, Joaquin Drive, 2nd Street East, and 4th Street East, also all on the bike trail. And then crosswalk enhancements to include the flashing beacons that I installed on Broadway and also at the corner of Spain Street and 3rd Street West. We got a brand new RRFB system out there, and these are the flashing beacons. But the RRFBs on this project will be installed at 5th Street West, 1st Street West, and 1st Street East. Some of the higher, closer to town, higher volume crosswalks. And those systems are fairly expensive, and that's why we're not just putting them at every single crossing. There's new pedestrian ramps and crosswalks at 7th Street West and West Spain Street. Then also two of the larger features of the project are, and I've got these on the next slide, but it's a pedestrian refuge and new RRFB system at Studley and 5th, right next to Safeway. And then also a Class 1 trail connecting the back of Andrick Street to the Sasserini School. And those two aspects are shown right here on a couple of the details that GHD's put together. These aren't project plans for the 35% submittal, but they are a plan view of the Studley and 5th Street West intersection. Safeway is right there on the right of where it says 5th Street West. And as you can see, we're doing some pretty major concrete improvements to bring the round corner out into the street, make what we call pedestrian refuges or bulb outs, and make the crosswalks a shorter distance, which gives the drivers the ability to focus more on the people as they get into the crosswalk and not all the way back at the existing sidewalk. And then also on the left is a plan view, kind of similar to a Google shot, of the pathway, which starts really close to the hospital overflow parking, which is just to the west of 4th Street West in the slide there. And then it wraps around, it goes through the back of Sasserini School, not on school property, on the other side of their fence, between that fence and the creek. And that goes all the way back to the solar panels. And this was presented as a safe route to school path when the project was originally conceived, and it was submitted into the ATP and the CTP that I talked about previously. Here's a little blurb on where to find project updates. And as you can see from this map on the left, you could follow the work that's going to be done on the bicycle crossings for the bike trail, the street crossings, and as they go through, starting at 4th Street at Level Valley, 4th Street East, and then you'll see one at 2nd Street, the two first streets, and then we skip through, basically going through Vallejo's home field, get over to 5th Street. We're putting another improvement in there. And then also, the other one that's shown here is Untitled, and that's where the raised crosswalk's going. And then there are upgrades to the two crossings, both east and west of Untitled, and I believe that's Joaquin and Robinson. And those aren't shown here. So there's a little bit more of the minor work happening here. Then if you drop down, there's the improvements at 7th and Spain. And then with the little note there, that's the school access improvements that are the safe route to school in the back of Sasserini and the Studley intersection. One of the other things that's on here that is not part of the project anymore is the green dot right above the C in the city of Sonoma. And that is the round corner in front of Union 76. And to fix that round corner, that's astronomically high, and that's going to be handled as part of a separate project. Also, there's a few more numbers just in case you didn't get enough in the chart there. Some of them are repeat. The Go Sonoma $1.6 million, and a couple of links that you can click on for more information. And that's the end of my presentation. And if anybody has any questions, I'd love to take them.
I have one.
Thank you very much, Mike. Let me see who would like. Commissioner McCloskey, please.
Yeah, what's the raised crosswalk? What is it physically?
So you familiar with the speed tables that we put in
Yes.
front of the Catholic Cemetery on
Yes.
Napa Street?
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to that, but it's going to be, those are movable. This is probably going to be a raised concrete table that it'll be at least a crosswalk width wide, and cars will have to slow down, go up over it, and then they can go on their way again.
Will it be concrete or some composite?
I haven't seen a detail for it yet, and this is the first one I've ever put in, but it's going to be either concrete or asphalt. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you. Other commissioner questions, comments?
Comments?
Sure. I mean, you
Thanks,
can put a
Mike.
question mark at the end of your comment, and that'll be perfect.
Okay. I had the pleasure of being in a meeting with Mike as a resident, not with my CAC hat on, and Cedra, so that we could understand how resident projects that Cedra's been involved in, and you might have heard it called Green Links, how resident projects are different than city-approved projects, and how, if we want to work together with the city, what we have to do. And I really appreciate Jennifer's ability to stick with me while we worked through 2 meetings so I could understand the differences. And for this meeting, I think what I'd like to be sure we understand is that we can't call any of our working with the residents or as a residence a CAC project unless it is actually approved by the city. And something Jennifer said to us long ago was we need to have partners out there. And I think Cedra, I wish you were here because I applaud her for her ability, right, Mike, to create a partnership, these partnerships and these plans and bring them to the city. But we have to be really clear what hat we're wearing when we talk about an approved city project, or if we're a resident and it's a resident project. So I wanted to bring that up because it can make Mike's life very difficult when we start to use the wrong terminology or unapproved terminology, and it can also make Jennifer's life frustrating because she has to go through it and explain it once again. So I apologize if all of you knew this, but it was very enlightening to me. So I think that's enough said on that, unless you want to add something, Jennifer and Mike.
Well, I just want to emphasize that, like you said, we all appreciate Jennifer. And then also, I appreciate the fact that the two of you just came out and talked to us and went over the project logistics and really understood, which is the genesis of, along with the fitting into Jennifer's agenda, me coming here tonight to just give a brief explanation of what the project's about. So appreciate all the effort and the work and the hours because it takes time, and when it pays off, it's real benefit to the community.
Well, thank you. And I think we have such positive energy around wanting to bring projects in to further our agenda and to get these priorities off the action checklist. But again, it's really recognizing the path that we have to work on to do that effectively with the city.
And I think what, I don't remember the date, but this was part of a project list from 2000.
2008, 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2008, 2017, or 2008, 2014.
So it's a long time ago in our world, but I think it's just part of where, like, as we go through this list of just some of these things are the long road. And as much as we want to finish components of it. And so a lot of what we did, and as we go through it, you'll see, is we did a lot of research on things, right? And we looked at what needs to get done so that we can track how things are happening, and if things are coming through, what can we do now? What do we need to sit on as opportunities arise? You know, if there's another round of Go Sonoma funding, like different things like that, just being ready to move. And so that's kind of where, you know, I want to stress is what we see today may have been the actions of a council 10 years ago. And that's where that's just how long sometimes these things take. And I know it's frustrating. Trust me, it's frustrating for me too. But that's just the reality of it. You know, funding is in cycles, and we try to pick what we can. So I do want to say that, and I when we're talking about the hats, where we all wear a lot of hats, and we have lots of different interests, and we represent ourselves in different ways. Even I do. I'm a city staff person, and then other times I am a mentor, or, you know, I do different things in the community. So I was like, I'm not wearing my city hat today. I'm just here enjoying this event. But we all have to take off some of the hats sometimes. With the city project part of it, you know, as I was explaining, is when the city identifies its goals and its actions, which we have, council's approved it. So we're approved to move forward with those things. That's how I know what I need to do, and that's what the city manager tells me to do, is based on these things. And so that's where I'm coming to you guys saying, okay, this is where our list is. And then also, you know, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we're doing to further, not specifically on your list, but just furthering bigger goals that city council has that we feel aligns with it. In a lot of cases, it doesn't just sit with climate action. It's also pros. It's also planning. You know, we have a lot of different commissions that have different interests within all the things that council wants us to do. So I'm going to leave it there.
So,
Yes, please.
thank you.
An excellent discussion. Please continue.
So Cedra and I have had many conversations about what the CAC can do in support of city projects. And I'd like to offer Mike an opportunity to use any expertise that we might have. You know, we have ad hoc groups for water, and just multitude of ad hoc groups, including outreach and education. And if we can be of service to him moving this forward, I think that would be great, because there's not enough resources. We just have to be clear. We have to let Jennifer know, and, well, I mean, we just have to maintain the communication. But, you know, I'd like to offer it unless somebody has any objections with our sharing of resources.
Thank you. That's great. I would briefly comment that having spent some decades as a student of words, including at various podiums and professorial activities and so on, I'm thinking of several words that come out of this conversation. One is the word project, and we've heard about city projects this evening and how important they are, and indeed how long a budget process takes through approval and contracts with consultants and revisions to contracts with consultants and supplemental funding of contracts with. So one key word is project. Another key word is initiative. And I think the commission has the ability to bring forth a variety of initiatives that are clearly not projects but could have implications for projects. And the third word that I would put forward on all of this is the middle word of this commission's name: action. And while some of the other commissions do, of course, take important actions, they don't have that name in there. They don't have that word in there quite the way at PROS or planning. This is a Climate Action Commission. And I think all of the commissioners, and the vice chair and myself, believe in action to deal with a global crisis that's affecting our lovely city. So being able to provide initiatives that become projects is a key part of taking action. Those are the three words that I would add to this discussion, and to do so recognizing appropriate roles and functions between staff and volunteers of one kind or another, like commissioners, and the public in general, and community action groups that are interested in doing things under their own resources, interfaced with projects that are underway by the institutional structure called the city or the county or the state, no more federal, despite having formerly been a federal executive. So that's my reaction to this. I think it's important that this commission continue to take initiatives, not feel squelched or constrained, but that the commission also recognize the reality of the structure within which we function in order to function effectively and efficiently moving forward. Vice Chair Conlon has some thoughts. Thanks, Tom.
Yes, thank you. Mike, I really appreciate you coming tonight and explaining the CIP T6 to us. You know, I have some general comments and then some specific things about the particular project. Generally, we've been through this, you know, in that period of time that you were talking about, that this project's been coming together, there's been a lot of staff turnover, and the project definition and the goals that it was set around predate, you know, most of the city's staff. And we are new too here at the commission, and so we're all still trying to figure this out. Exactly how are we going to work most efficiently together? Classic organizational challenge of the planning function being separate from the implementation public works function. So you two as staff people, I observe, have a good working relationship, and you figured that out on the staff level. We at the commission are still trying to figure out how we do in fact support you. And many of us have different roles in the community and can build support for some things. We can write grants, we can, you know, help get those grants awarded. There's a lot of things we can do if we're all pulling in the same direction together. And I think that's our objective here, is to achieve the action, but do it in a way that's not going to be inefficient and burdensome and troublesome for you all. So I very much appreciate you coming tonight and kind of laying this out for us. Specifically, we have the design of this project, and obviously it was a laundry list of opportunities in that initial grant application that we initially requested. The budget's come back, it's quite a lot more than what we had originally hoped to get it done for. My question is, how do we interact with the implementation and planning processes to decide, to determine how best to move forward? What elements are the priorities for this round of funding, future rounds of funding, other sources of funding? How do we identify those things? Does that happen at our commission? Does that happen at the planning commission? Does that happen at a traffic safety commission meeting? I know that the traffic safety process is very much, as I've observed, a citizen application or almost complaint-driven process. And while it's great that the city has such an ad hoc it's responsive to its citizens and has such a process, what I observed is that although it was never planned, that traffic safety table, the raised table on Spain Street went in rather quickly, from what I could tell, faster than this project, for example, which was deliberatively planned and is now going through a very careful design review process. So the question I think that we have to answer for ourselves and for members of the community is, how much do you want us to use that traffic safety process for what we perceive to be high risk, high reward, something like that case on Spain that actually did produce an outcome pretty fast.
I'm familiar with what you're talking about on Spain. Are you referring to the traffic table on Napa Street?
I'm talking about Napa Street. Forgive me.
Okay.
I ride a bicycle. I don't look at the street signs. You're right. It's in front of it's between 4th and 5th on Napa Street. And so my first question is really, do you want us to use that process for things that we might perceive on the committee to be high safety risks? Or do you prefer us to stay in our lane and go through this more this planning process, circulation element process? And how do we encourage members of the community to use these processes that are available to us?
So the way we accomplish business at the Traffic Safety Committee is complaint driven, but it's also program driven. And the evolution of the rollout for our traffic calming measures handbook that we just published at the last traffic safety meeting, that's going to be available online. That's another way that we get things done, is by developing programs that either don't exist or are currently existing in the city. Now, in terms of the traffic hazard reporting form and the complaint driven aspects of all this, obviously if there's a area in town that is a high risk area and, you know, high reward, I just stick with the risk, because the reward will vet itself out and the cost. However, any citizen or citizen group in the community can turn in a traffic hazard reporting form. We receive multiple forms every quarter that we go over at each traffic safety meeting. So I would completely encourage people to fill those out, and the ones that come in with more signatures have more weight, because if it's just a single person that saw it, it's a single occurrence. And if you have the whole neighborhood doing things like we did at 5th East and Napa, and then obviously those things carry more weight. We have neighborhood meetings with those folks. And when you're talking about potential funding opportunities or things like that, that's handled in a completely separate forum, but it could be brought up and discussed. It could be sent in an email. There's a lot of different venues. If you talk about it here, obviously Jennifer's going to be here, Jacob's going to be here. Everybody could, you know, we talk to each other all the time. We could relay information, and then also send an email out, bringing it up at a traffic safety meeting. A lot of different avenues for getting information like that out in the public. And one of the things I could just emphasize a little bit more is Sonoma doesn't, we don't, grants just don't come out and find us. We have to go out, we have to search for them. A lot of them we don't qualify for. And when we do get them, it's very, very important to take full advantage of them, meet the timelines, spend 100% of the money that we're allotted, and get the biggest bang for the buck on the projects that we can. Chase Street Bridge, the Go Sonoma project that we're talking about, Friar Creek, the AMI project where we just replaced every meter in the city of Sonoma, Chase Street Bridge, 87%, 88% federally funded. So these are the types of grants that we want to continue to pursue, get, and then be successful in implementing the project. So I hope I answered all your questions.
Yeah, that's good. So then, specific to this project, how did you determine to go with the permanent concrete or asphalt raised? How did you determine that particular solution? And then why, it looks like there's only one going in at Junipero, but not anywhere else. And so I'm just understanding the criteria that we're using. Are those things outlined in the new guidelines that are coming out of the traffic safety, or are there some other decision-making criteria?
Yes,
Because
they are.
We didn't get a chance here to talk about that, and I haven't seen that as any discussed in public anyplace. It may have been discussed at traffic safety, but I didn't attend.
It's been discussed at traffic safety. It's part of the agenda. It's in draft form. At traffic safety, they recommended that we bring it into final form, which we're in the process of doing right now. As soon as that's done, it'll get put up on the website, but it is in the agenda packet for the traffic safety meeting. Now, in terms of the specific location that the raised crosswalk is, okay, that, if I'm not mistaken, in the original application for the grant, either in 2014 or 2008, was one of multiple, two or more locations where something like that was proposed. The reason that we're putting it in on Juniper Serra is because the traffic on Juniper Serra tends to go faster than Joaquin or Robinson. I believe Robinson's a cul-de-sac, and Joaquin doesn't have the amount of traffic on it that Juniper Serra does. And when you talk about putting something like that in, those are not cheap. And the original engineer's estimate for that was $213,000, approximately twice what a standard enhancement would cost or more. And so you want to be selective with where you put them. Emergency responders would rather they weren't there because they slow down response times, and anybody that's in need of emergency response in a timely manner. And so we got to work closely with police and fire about the locations of these. I believe in the new traffic guidelines that those are not recommended on collector or arterial streets, of which 5th Street's collector, 5th Street West, and Spain Street, and I believe 1st Street West. So there's reasons not to put those in those on collectors. Yeah, and with Joaquin though, because of the fact that it's on an S-curve and visibility is limited, and then people can get a pretty good clip going down Joaquin, and the number of vehicles that traverse it on a daily basis, that's why that location was settled on.
Thanks, Mike. That's very helpful to have that explained, because I have not had anybody explain that to me before. And there are a lot of people in the community, especially in our bike riding community that I'm familiar with, who perceive traffic calming measures from the perspective of a pedestrian or a bicyclist. Anything that slows down the vehicles is a good thing. And so I can see how in certain areas that may not be in fact the best for all cases. So I'll be looking forward to looking at the guidelines over and understanding exactly how that criteria is developed, and then we can support the implementation throughout the city in a way that makes sense. That's definitely our objective. And I know the Vision Zero process, the report that's been done, I think has some recommendations in there as well. So great to have that back and forth with you tonight to be able to understand that better. One other thing, if I may, someone came to me in the public recently and had emailed me a complaint about a red curb close to a crosswalk that is near the Whole Foods parking lot, what used to be the Best Western Sonoma Inn near the fire station, the fire station. And I guess these are pedestrian, older people that have difficulty walking around town. I don't know if you've heard about this particular incident, but when those things come to us, I think we just share them with staff, and then I assume that's the way to deal with that.
Yeah, and especially something like that, okay? If you get a complaint from a citizen that a certain crosswalk doesn't have enough visibility for whatever reason, or something else like that, something like that's fine to send over to Public Works, because filling out a traffic hazard reporting form takes a little bit of time. There's a lot of extra information in there, but we're working right now currently with the police department and city manager's office about going in and designating locations on 2nd Street. The new state law, which went into effect on January 1st, 2025, requires that cars do not park within 20 feet of a crosswalk or 15 feet of a bulb out crosswalk. And so you don't have to paint the curbs red. The police department can ticket them, and the police department will be ticketing them. because we're not gonna paint all the crosswalks in town red. It's too much maintenance. But I'd just call them controversial, because if there's one crosswalk in town where people continue to park at and people continue to complain at, we're gonna go out and paint it red, because we don't wanna see the police have to go out there and write people tickets or people get tickets. And so we'll go out and paint it red. We did this along Broadway, we did it along First Street, and we did it along Spain Street. And we did some also on Napa Street on the east side of town, not Caltrans Highway. So, and we also painted a lot around the plaza. Yeah, so there's those few corridors, we pretty much got those covered. That doesn't mean we didn't miss one, and that doesn't mean that there isn't one on another street that we should have gotten. And so if it's as simple as, hey, have you guys looked at the intersection at First and Napa, that basically we think that there's an issue there when trucks park in this one spot? We could look into that, no problem. Yeah, and that can be sent over to Public Works, where if it's something that you and your neighbors want to turn in, then it's probably better to turn in traffic hazard reporting form, because it might go bigger than just simply painting a curb red.
Thank you again, very helpful. And then my last question has to do with the upcoming Go Sonoma solicitation, the 5-year SCTCA competitive grant offering that's coming out in late summer. And I'm just wondering, how can we support the city in filing a good competitive, and what are you planning for that?
So Ashley Cotter, the project manager for Public Works, she's gonna be leading the effort on that. And, you know, in terms of like aligning different forces to help her, assist her, she would be my point person on all that. And so she's dialed in. She goes to the monthly SCTA meetings that we go to over in Santa Rosa, and she's my conduit for getting all that done. And basically, if you want to just drop her a quick note, she can respond back and respond to that.
Thank you again.
Other commissioner questions, comments? Seeing none, I would add one more, that from my experience, projects and budgets are complex, and occasionally budget shortfalls affect project timing. From that general perspective, I would ask Mike to say a little more about the probable timing for your efforts on what I believe was called the school access element of the broader project that you summarized for us this evening. What kind of timing are we looking at there in a likelihood scenario?
Finish construction?
Well, commence construction would be a good starting point to move us toward finished construction.
Sounds good. So what we're doing is we're right now trying to get 100% plans, specs, and estimate, get the job out to bid. That could happen before the end of the year. If that does happen, we're looking at constructing next summer. And that's the entire project. We'll do the entire project under one contract with one contractor. And that would be next summer.
So the entire project becomes subject to both effective implementation and or delay, depending on budget and development of specs. That's what I'm hearing. It's an all or nothing package in terms of budget timing.
Yeah, and we'll get the budget portion of it under control. The plan specs and getting the project out to bid, that's not insurmountable to have that happen before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Then on behalf of the commission as a whole, I thank you for your detailed and helpful presentation this evening.
Well, and I want to thank you just to have me present.
All right, so
That allows us to move on to our next agenda item.
do you want to go through the items,
Sure.
or do you want to go to your ad hoc?
I think let's go. We've got an agenda. Let's move
So
forward?
so you had requested to go through, status, and we kind of went through that the last meeting. Nothing's really changed. I just want to maybe clarify a few things, and then I'm gonna have, and this ties into actually your ad hoc report. So we're gonna move through this lovely list, and then we can bring up ad hoc reports if we wanna look at that specific report.
I think
as we
that's
get to 'em.
perfect.
Okay, so, good night, thank you.
Thank you.
The connect the Sonoma City Trail to the plaza. So some of the items that we have are, maybe ideas and initiatives, like you were saying in your keywords, that, we may not actually be the implementing body. So for this one, I would say, stay tuned. We'll see what comes about, with one of the city council goals to look closer at the plaza area. And so when that opportunity to participate, I will let you know. The increasing the downtown bicycle parking, we've talked about before. We've seen it in action downtown. The cool corridors, again, waiting for that grant cycle to start back up. And then look at, combining our efforts that we have going on in the tree section as far as doing the tree inventory, the canopy study that provides us, that study is gonna tell us good locations for trees. I think we already know there's some that we want to see along the trail, especially in the Sonoma, the state park area where there's not really a lot of trees, helping with our trail over there. The next item is in regards to electrifying personal transportation. So we'll continue to look at opportunities. What we're trying to find right now is a grant opportunity to help plan for, actual charging stations in public spaces, and identify what the needs are and the cost of that, because we don't have, a lot of the grants are for actually installation, but we need power, and we already know that component of it. But, and then increasing EV charging at multi-unit dwellings. We are, as staff, expanding that to just EV chargers in general, public and private, for all. And we are participating, and I'm gonna let Jacob, because Jacob's the one's participating in it, talk about the Charging Smart program that we are now participating in this year.
So I don't have slides to show just because it's not very image based. It's mostly just going to be policy work, and working with the group to discuss where we're at currently and trying to meet the goals that they have for each city, each jurisdiction, and being able to implement EV charging facilities. So I have a little synopsis that I put together, and I'll just go ahead and read it. So basically, the Charging Smart program is an EV readiness program that encourages the establishment of policies and procedures that impact EV charging deployment in their communities. There was a meeting that was held on April 10th where we discussed the next steps for designating the city of Sonoma and which designation was going to be most feasible for us. We found that there's 3 designations. There's bronze, silver, and gold. We're confident that we'll be able to achieve the bronze designation, and then we're hoping to achieve the silver designation. There's a list of things that need to be adopted or implemented in order to achieve each of these designations, and the list gets, as you get into gold, it gets a little bit more difficult, requires a lot more funds and things like that. So the program provides no-cost technical assistance to help local governments follow best practices to expand EV adoption and electrified shared modes and EV charging infrastructure. The Charging Smart program also provides technical assistance documents and articles and recordings. And then the next steps will include reviewing existing city codes. So currently I'm looking at what we have in our ordinances and in the general plan that revolve around EV charging, and how we're going to be able to, if we already meet any of these designation requirements. And then we discussed, we discussed those policies, new ones that we can adopt, and then the next one is going to be discussing coordination with utility groups. So there's a meeting in June, on June 4th, which will be with PG&E to discuss kind of connections with utilities and being able to make it achievable in your city, so that you have more charging facilities. That's going to be the next spot. I don't have a lot of detail at the moment regarding that, because that's what that meeting is going to be for, is getting us connected, talking to PG&E and talking to other utility providers, and just kind of discussing how the difficulties that people go through, and then kind of the ways that you can actually bring in the utilities for EV chargers. The designation process is going to take a total of 8 months to complete, and then we have monthly meetings where we're going to discuss the progress, and then they give us assistance as well. And we expect that the scorecard designation review, which we'll provide as all the things that we've met, all the challenges we've faced, and then that'll be reviewed in October of this year, and then we would receive our designation in November. So just kind of an idea as to where we're going with this. It should help with being able to achieve some of the climate action strategies that we have here for expanding publicly accessible EV charging, and then also the charging at multi-unit dwellings. So
yeah, with that, so we are constantly trying to look for opportunities to receive free assistance, and this is one of those programs that kind of landed in our lap that we wanted to take advantage of, and it's a good start to kind of reassess where we're at with EV. Travis had done a lot in the ordinance already to help promote quicker review for building permits, and so now we're broadening that and looking at it a little bit more. Any policy recommendations for the EV charging we could bring to this group, and then move that recommendation then to city council, because at the end of the day it's city council's approval in those sections of the code that this typically lives in. It wouldn't go to planning commission.
Tom has a comment, question.
Yeah, in preparing for tonight's meeting, I was going back through some of the older minutes of our meetings and my notes, and we were asked some questions by the public about what was the status of the operability of the EV chargers that we already have. And so what I did is I put together a Google spreadsheet of questions that have been asked of us so we can start to keep track of what these questions are. And I'll share, I just put it together this afternoon, so I'll share it with staff and we can circulate it. But I'm prompted by the EV charger question because it did come before us, and I did a quick search, and of course on the website there is a page on EV chargers for the city, but it didn't really answer the question about whether they're still operating or not. And so I guess the question is, and maybe this could be answered by some of my fellow commissioners who actually have EVs, and you maybe don't use cities' websites to find out if they're working, but use a phone app, which is probably the better way to do it. I'm just wondering if we can answer this community's questions, but also work toward having. I think this designation is a great, free, nice to have, but I do want to be sure we still make progress on getting the funding to put more EVs chargers in where we can, on public property as well as private property.
And that's the idea behind it, is to create the policies and the implementation to help us move the needle forward. In this, Jacob's checking, but I thought one of the items was a accessible like map to show where all of them were, or maybe that was just something that they asked me for when I applied for this program.
I think it exists, but I don't think it's linked to the website
so
yet.
as you know too, some days some chargers don't work and they need to get fixed, and that's where the apps are telling you where to go. Also, if you have a Tesla and you don't have a converter, then you can't use the other ones, and if you don't have the converter, then you can't use the Tesla one, and I know like I keep hearing all these, some cost money, some don't. So I only know of 3 locations, and I don't even have an electric car. So I just know enough people that do, that they tell me where things are working or not working. Mike has an electric car, actually. He's told me before. So happy to see the list of questions. Some of the things that have come up with the EV charging obviously were more about like the building permit, cost of the permit, things like that. And that again is
Questions on the
my
list too.
long game things I can't fix right this second. So they're in here.
I know, and the question is building a sense of confidence that we're making progress together.
Of course, I would add, we have a long, almost laundry list of climate actions in our strategies. I take personally the EV charger initiative as a very high priority from the perspective of climate smart Sonoma and the economy here, and the evolving relationship between climate action and the local economy and the Chamber of Commerce and so on. And moving forward more than we have to date since the formation of this commission with added EV chargers available would be a really good thing. There's a lot of frustration as an EV car owner over the availability of chargers. I don't have a converter, so I can walk easily to the Tesla chargers and could leave a car there charging, but nope, doesn't happen. I won't express myself further about Tesla, though it's tempting. But there are often problems with one or more of the 4 chargers behind the Bank of America building near the plaza. That's the one I use almost exclusively.
If I may, through the chair?
Yes,
So
sir.
it looks like we do have a good amount of maps or requirements for maps, and or not requirements, options that if we provide mapping that we'll get points for that, which will lead to us getting our designation ranking. There's one in education, there's one in government implementation and government outreach, I think, government operations. So, creating either a mapping tool, which, I could see that potentially being through GIS. If we were to make a layer on GIS, probably would work through that. And then also having some kind of handout, things like that, could help us get some of these points. So
Those are certainly positive. Getting points is positive. I suspect Commissioner Fogelberg joins me in our joint frustration over the history of being offered probably close to 3 years ago now, as we were all younger, free chargers in the city, and nothing happened to move forward with that. So there were reasons for that, some of which are more compelling than others, but nevertheless, it is frustrating to think back how long ago that was for an offer to install operative public chargers here at no cost to the city.
Yeah, and I just note that the map thing is just one of many recommendations of best practices that this organization is offering and helping guide. And so I just made note of that. It's just saying there's a lot of things that this is giving us ideas around too that may be things that we haven't thought about or that we haven't done yet. And it's a nice little impetus to get some low-hanging fruit done that we can around this. Now I just forgot what I was going to say. Gosh.
It's easy to lose track when it's a
Yeah.
long day.
Yes.
I would assert this evening, and
So-
some of you know why I'm saying that.
Yeah. So I'll let Jacob speak about education and outreach, and then I'm gonna go to the next item. because
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, I
Yes,
have a
of course you can.
Go ahead.
One thing I wonder is this just like a training mission? Because isn't the Charge Smart, they get to a level 2 charging, and that's like 50 miles per hour. You know, you charge for an hour, you get 25 to 50 miles. So I wonder if there's more bang for your buck if you, and they're a vendor. So of course they want to have more of these level 2 charging, but what good is that if the standard is that people want to charge and go to LA? Or say you want to get into LA, you need about 430 miles. Santa Barbara, 350. People are thinking 7x, it would take them 7 hours at a level 2. So I wonder whether we would be getting information we don't need, since the infrastructure is really a limiter. It's rustic here in terms of PG&E. And then you'd have to get Public Works involved, digging up the streets probably to put in level 3 and 4 charging, right? High-speed charging. It would be a major, I wonder if there would be more learning in something like that. I'm just logistics and how long it takes.
Yeah, that's probably more in line with the types of chargers is what you're talking about that would be installed. A lot of this revolves around policy work and regulatory work. So this is going to be language used in our ordinances and the general plan.
Got it.
Yeah, just so that we can create the pathway to allow for land uses that would create, you know, the eligibility to put in a.
Yeah, our group is very ambitious, so I think this isn't with, you know, I don't think this is our ambition, is it, Tom, to get level 2 charging?
Well, I mean, considering our city's a transient occupancy tax funded city, we might want to encourage them to go slow and spend the night, recharge overnight. No, your point's well taken. I tend to want to let the market take care of those kinds of technology adoption decisions. You know, if there's demand for a particular method, that's what's going to be likely to be promoted by the project developers. And we, as the city, probably have a higher obligation to our more vulnerable or the population, our climate justice communities, to try and help them, because they can't help themselves, to put a charger in their own property. The renters, the multifamily owners. So those are the things I would be encouraging us at the city level to be pushing our EV charging program and intentions toward, and let level, what is that, level 3, if those guys want to come to Sonoma, put a gas station in, an EV gas station in.
So that's what my question was going to be. I had the privilege of meeting Chair Morrell the other day at our favorite charger. It was quite delightful, but
Always a pleasure, sir.
well, I hope it happens more frequently. My cars, I've got 2. You push a button and it shows you where the next charger is. So it's like if you want, and we're in a program and everybody's in a private program. So the thing I've never quite understood, and maybe Jacob, you've got a handle on this, how much of it is driven by Energy America versus the Department of Energy? And what can we do do we have to encourage, Energy America is part of.
Electrify America, for the
Electrify
record.
America. Thank you.
For the legal record, sir.
That's right, which is VW, which was what they had to establish when
Yep.
they messed with
Diesel.
with the diesel cars. Do we approach those guys we can help them get funding for the mechanics, but don't we need to get the private industry people interested the way we have the industry set up now?
Yeah, I think there is an importance in getting developers to be interested in installing, but I think we also need to make it so that the lands, the properties that they're building on have the requirements or the ordinances surrounding it that make it so installing it's either easier or it's part of the requirement for, like, let's say commercial and multifamily. And that's something where we currently have the ordinance that makes it so it's a building permit process and it's a little bit easier to install. but we don't have anything that's really revolving around requirements for EV spots and things of like that.
Understood, but
Yeah.
I guess what I'm interested in is how large is the component to find the person or the group that runs that charger, as opposed to making it a ability for somebody to have a charger there, getting them actually to put it there.
I would say I haven't gone to a point of seeing anything throughout these different, the different categories here for that particular, but we are, part of the categories is to work with utilities directly, so that's the next step, and so I'll find out more at that point.
So I do say that there are the companies that see the customer base, just like any other retail, like major retailer, it's the same idea. If they see the market, they will come and do their thing, right? That's why in Napa you see this giant Tesla charging area at the outlet mall. Every single outlet mall in America now has huge charging stations, right? And so they're following their market base too, I think. I think it's the same, I think it has the same mindset. That's why we have 3 different providers just in our own town, right? So they came to us saying, I want to do this.
So what
Or to Bank of
should we be
America.
looking at at the same time and making areas able to have level 3 chargers? There's actually, the story out of China is there's a Chinese car that charges in 5 minutes now. So when that happens, forget the gasoline when it gets to this country. But
That'll have a large tariff before it comes in.
It will, always politicizing. But let's not forget that we need, because it is a private industry, we need to get them to come back and talk to us again.
Yeah, I think that that's the other thing, right? When we make it easy, then there's more attraction to come. If you make it hard, just like any other development, if you make it hard for them to come, then they're not gonna want to come. And I think that's what's part of this conversation is as well. The other thing that we were kind of told is kind of a marketing gimmick too, by, just like any other designation, is that they will have, I can't remember the name of the organization, I'm gonna have to let him say it. They basically are promoting that all these cities have gone through these processes and are now at these different levels, and I think it's their way of connecting to that private side too.
Any other comments, questions, support for EV charging in Sonoma? Let's move on.
All right, so I'm gonna just go straight through the 2 ordinances. We'll be in touch with Tom and Philip when we have a second to move that to a planning commission hearing and to request them to initiate the ordinance is that first step with that one.
Before you jump to, on T3, public transportation.
Yeah, I jumped.
The downtown shuttle. Do we have any feedback on how the pilot went?
I don't have any information.
Okay.
It's a visitors bureau. did the-
Right.
Use your phone, whatever this thing is called.
You know,
I'm
we
losing
might-
my vocabulary.
We might want to invite Tim to update us on that, because
And Tim would be, for those listening?
the,
Director.
thank you.
Tim
the
Zanner,
director
the,
of the Tourist Bureau. Yeah. And it also might be a good time to get Mark Bodenhammer, ED of the Chamber, because we are talking with both of them about climate smart tourism, which I think links back in to both the trolley, the EV charging, and quite a few other pieces. And I know we're really anxious to move that along, as well as the electric bikes.
I think that's an excellent suggestion for a future meeting to further provide information to us and to the public on all of this. I know that that group has identified a potential electric vehicle that would be appropriate. They want one that looks trolley-like rather than a school bus. Unfortunately, the major one that meets those criteria is not inexpensive. It's about $500K, which is about $499K more than we have available at the moment. So we're still looking at that, but it would be an interesting discussion to continue to have. I know some of the hotel groupings that run expensive vehicles at the moment for their tourists would be potentially very interested in participating in such a project. And I'm increasingly intrigued about the idea of a small surcharge on facilities that would be rebated for those who came in electric vehicles and had the access to an electric bus. Next.
We'll make note of that. In the interest of time, if there's certain ones that people want me to pull out, we can talk about it. But just for the building side of things, there's opportunities that we've talked about around education. We are promoting all of Bayrin's programs as they give me their new updates on programs and things. We circulate that through our city newsletter now. Staff's following the state legislation going on right now that may completely put a pause on all reach codes and updates to building standards for the next 6 years. So that's 3 cycles. So we're just watching right now and just trying to figure out. We participate in a staff reach code call that's quarterly. So we're all kind of just holding tight right now. And then again, just education opportunities around how to promote energy efficiency within our buildings is really what most of the Bs are about. And let's see. And then we'll need to do more research on the microgrid concept as well. We are.
Sorry, Commissioner Conlon has a comment or
building.
question.
Just an update on the building energy benchmarking. The city of Berkeley adopted updates to their BESO ordinance, which requires a home energy score at the time of sale. And I was speaking with staff at RCPA at the county level, and they're going to be looking at the progress, the initial rollout of that program, and deciding whether it makes sense for certain jurisdictions that may be interested, might want to take a look at that here in Sonoma County as well. So I think that's an exciting development. The home energy score is a pretty dumb tool, but it does give people a directional indicator. The thing that's especially unique about the Berkeley ordinance is that when you're selling your house, you have the option to make a bunch of efficiency improvements up front and do an assessment, or you can disclose that you haven't had the assessment done and the buyer, both parties put money into escrow during the process, and then the buyer takes over the responsibility for doing the assessment and then taking funds out of that escrow account. And if they don't, the money goes back into the general fund to pay for low-income customers that can't afford to do these things. So it's a very carefully worked through program, and it probably has a lot of features that are kind of Berkeley-esque that may not necessarily translate to us up here, but there may be some things we can use.
That sounds so interesting for a future agenda item that would present those details to us as a possible recommendation back to council for all or something less than all of the Berkeley-esque features. Some of us might like that more than others, but having that as a future agenda item sounds terrific.
Again, to what Jennifer said, she's participating in the Bayren discussions, and that's really where that's all being discussed. So we'll hear about it through Jacob and Jennifer as well.
I'm guessing that's based on current, like, ability for green building, right? That's with the current standards for the scoring?
I'm sorry, I didn't actually hear you.
With the scoring that they're telling homeowners that they have to get, that's with green building standards that we currently have now, not with the expectation of any updates.
It's a little different. It's basically a independent energy audit that's done by a home inspector or a green build points rater. And they also have, in Berkeley, they have it for commercial buildings as well, and it's rolled into the whole Energy Star portfolio manager requirements for larger buildings, which they have in Berkeley. So it's a comprehensive program that's been developed in Berkeley, and they've got a many, many years head start and lots of dedicated staff who've been really working on this for a long time. So, but the residential component, we have such a residential base here in Sonoma, it may make some sense to either incentivize or just get our realtor population and our home inspector population familiar with this. But that'll be, the research for that I would put off on Bayren. I wouldn't do it at the city level.
Yeah, we do get, when they come through Bayren or RCPA of model ordinances or model programs. So we have heard a little bit about that, but not a lot yet because, like you said, it's still in its infancy. And whenever I see things like that, I'm always like, how do you enforce that? Like, how does that, move forward? So that was just more to come on that. On waste, solid waste, we had talked about doing more around composting and education, and part of conversations that we've had, Jacob and I participate in the zero waste conversations with staff as well, is finding a composting site in the valley is kind of one of the key things that they're looking for. It's one of the, Jacob knows, every time I'm on that call, I was like, what about the valley? What about the valley? Because they have a lot of programs everywhere, but the valley and the coast are always kind of left alone sometimes to figure it out. But we do have some programs here that I'm learning more about, like picking up waste from restaurants or like leftover food situations and delivering them to SOS and other places. So that's been interesting to learn more about. And everybody's either exempt or participating in the program correctly. So that's good. We have no issues here. Jacob just went to the zero waste one-day symposium, met a bunch of people there as well. So we're getting more involved in the zero waste and making sure that we have the up-to-date information and again, promoting their activities as well.
Just before you move past solid waste, Jennifer, I would like the commission to know, and vast numbers of the public following this meeting, to know that we now have, supported by zero waste at the city park on 7th Street East, we have a compost availability facility for the first time. A couple of months ago it came in, and it's being used by local residents, apparently successfully.
Yeah, we
at
did.
Sonoma Garden Park on 7th Street East.
Yes, we did talk about that one and building that one up more. The other thing about solid waste we had talked about is enforcement. We still rely on reactive enforcement, so we need complaints to come in but again, goes back to education. There's a couple of things that I've talked to even the gas blowers. I'm trying to work with our PIO to create a list of all of our property managers, because we heard that there was gas blowers being used at another location that isn't a private home. And so just getting back out there with the education materials to our property managers about these different things. Same idea of like just reminding everybody about all the different rules, around the plastic bags and single-use plastics and things. Increasing the number of water bottle filling stations is an ongoing thing. We did, I think we have one more to install in the plaza. And then I already talked about the single-use plastics there. And we do enforce it during our events, and we're trying to be a little bit stronger on some other things around our events with that. So I'll end at solid waste and go to water, and maybe ad hoc for water can talk a little bit about Cash for Turf program, unless there's any questions about solid waste. All right, Cash for Turf, ad hoc. We're gonna combine these 1 and 2.
That makes sense, yeah. So the Cash for Turf, Water Turf ad hoc report. Amber, do you have thoughts on this at this point?
That's not me.
Well, that's not Amber.
It's Leo and I.
Leo and Cedra, sorry.
No, Leo and myself.
Leo and Tom.
Leo and Tom, no. Clearly I'm up to speed on this assignment.
No, that's fine.
You think?
Let's get myself to it here. Here we are. So we met several times. We've been quite active since our last meeting. And we both met independently, just the ad hoc. We met with staff a couple of times. And then we also had one meeting with a member of the Pros Commission who had reviewed who had helped put together the master city tree list, which is part of the recommended tree list for when the city requires a customer or a city resident to replace a tree. Or it's also, I think, being used in the city's municipal public works decision-making as well. And so, as you recall, this committee really came together, I think, with 2 drivers. One was Jennifer kind of giving us direction that she wanted us to get active on, something we could really get our hands around and make progress on, make some things happen, and also Leo's interest in making sure that our recommendations to members of the community are kind of best practices up to snuff with Copenhagen climate categories, the changing climate that we're experiencing. So we put together, as a result of all that work, a pretty detailed report. I'm gonna admit I didn't read every word of every page that I've linked in this report yet. In particular, so the Urban Water Management Plan is the document that every city in California is required to produce every 5 years that says how we are conserving water. And a couple of other high-level observations is that we discovered that the city of Sonoma has the highest per capita water consumption of any jurisdiction in the Marin and Sonoma region. So we are, we have the greatest potential to conserve. And so one of the things that, when Jacob gave us some detailed data, which actually isn't in the report yet, but I was just crunching on it before the meeting today. And so I now have another chart, yet another chart, of participation in the Cash for Turf program in the city of Sonoma. over the last, since the 2007-8 fiscal year. And it's been sporadic, relatively high in the first couple of years. It dipped, it went to 0 in a couple of years. There was no participation and even spotty record keeping for one period of time. And then it's gone up again. We've got, I think, 3 participants this year to date. So there's clearly a lot of opportunity to do more with that program. However, when I read through the Urban Water Management Plan from 2020, of course it's being updated this year, and Ashley Cotter will be leading that project as well. And I believe they're out to bid right now with a contract for a consultant to pick that up. Maybe not. Maybe they've actually determined the consultant who will be doing that. I'm a little fuzzy on exactly the contracting. But the Urban Water Management Plan is going to be updated, but the old one had some cost effectiveness questions about the Cash for Turf program. It's actually quite expensive. In residential, you've got to go out to each customer and they've got to file their paperwork, and then you've got to write them a check, and somebody has to make an inspection to make sure it actually got implemented. But it's clear that it's feasible for the city of Sonoma to do this. We've been doing it for a long time, and our participation has slacked off. It might make sense to really, if we decide to commit to it as a long-term forward in the future, then we should probably be operating it at a certain scale where it makes sense to even just keep talking about it. That would be my initial comment. If we can find other ways to do other water conservation measures that make more sense, we should maybe consider doing those instead. City of Sonoma spends about $135,000 a year on the Saving Water Partnership with the rest of our regional partners, which I didn't realize it was that much money. It's collected in water rates. And so it's a little opaque, I think, to people because they just pay their water bill and the money goes into this pool. Whether it trickles down to City of Sonoma after it's been collected by the water agency is, I think, something we on the water, anybody here is concerned about climate, we should be paying attention to this. And the other thing I want to point out is that in 2016, when we did our climate action plan and had the 22 measures, the top greenhouse gas reduction measure at the local level was water conservation. And we did set a higher goal for ourselves than the state minimum, which was 20% by 2020 reduction. We did not hit our 2020 reach goal that we'd set for ourselves. We did come in below 20%, but we didn't go the extra 10%, I think is what Sonoma had set for itself. So I don't really see a direct correlation between spending we've been doing and this conservation and sufficiency savings we've been capturing. But this is something that, again, there's a nexus to Public Works as well, because Public Works has kind of responsibility for this planning process and operating the water department. So, what would I think be ideal would be for us to, our ad hoc, to interface with Ashley and perhaps the consultant at like the kickoff meeting stage or something like that, so that we could at least get our climate commission objectives in front of them as they draft the new urban water management plan, and then just be prepared to be reviewing that as it comes together. Now, Leo, you want to say anything about the the plant lists and the best practices and the discussion that we had with Jessica in terms of the different objectives of the Cash for Turf program versus the trees program, because the plant lists are kind of different.
Yeah, I've always come at it from temperature and water, and there are two standards that the forestry department has set up. You can go and get a map with the evapotranspiration rate for the valley, for all the little areas around here. You can know exactly how much water is pouring up out of the environment, and you can compute and get gallons, per month. And you can also get vegetation mapping showing that if you put the right plant inside of that evapotranspiration model, you'll reduce the water the maximum. If you plant a plant that's in this vegetation standard, the Köppen-Geiger, and if you match that, you'll change the temperature of the city lower, and you will reduce the water, and the water coming up off these plants will also add water to the environment and reduce the evapotranspiration rate. So none of those things got a look in this. I am still know that this would be the direction to go for the city. If you're going to write code, it would be so easy on you because you have these two physical, environmental pieces of physics, and everybody is agreeing to this Köppen-Geiger, and everybody statewide is agreeing to using evapotranspiration, save for agricultural crops now. But what we found out was maybe on the budgeting side, it looked to me from my cost accounting background that there's a fiduciary issue that was beyond us. And that fiduciary issue is the citizens are being taxed and giving you $135,000, and it's cycling through this SMSWP, and where did the money go? So the money did not go into Cash for Turf. Basically, that's what happened. We ran into that fiduciary. Now, is there malfeasance? Is there mismanagement? We didn't replicate the expenditures to Cash for Turf, anything that we could knock on. So we sort of pulled our horns in, and I think Tom is looking at, is there something that we should, since we're stopped here, is there somewhere that the money went that wasn't Cash for Turf, since we know it wasn't that? And that, where is it? And is that a good area now, and should we be doing more of that? And so the other thing, so that's one point about the $135,000 specifically. But number two, when it came to the plant list, we found out that the pros committee had worked on a trees list, and this trees list ended up, for expediency, I think this is almost a quote from Ms. Mazurka, that because things were bogged down and there was no tree list, there were only 3 trees, I think she said, that were approved by, for Public Works and Parks to go in and be planted if somebody lost a tree, that she wanted to expand that, which was noble. And she expanded the list with the University of California. Is it the natural history? Master Gardeners. So the Master Gardeners is not a hardball physics-based organization. It's a little bit home and garden, or kind of a botanical or natural history approach. So what happens is the trees that got onto the list include the wrong trees. I'll give you an example. The first tree I put into the Köppen-Geiger said, this was a plant from northern Mexico, and it's planted in the deserts of northern Mexico. It's wild, and it's in only a little bit of California, in the very bottom southeast corner. And if you move that tree into Sonoma, where the evapotranspiration rate is lower than the desert, that tree will become a tree, I guess, that would have big roots, invasive, and sure enough, you just Google a tree and it says, in this Copenhagen here, it'll, get after destroyed pool plumbing and stuff. So I think the list has some good plants in it, but a lot of them come from projects the University of California has gotten funded. For example, all the coastal islands, Santa Barbara Island, Catalina Island. So guess what was in the list? Catalina, arbutus, Santa Cruz Island, this and that. And those aren't the right plants for Sonoma because Sonoma has no marine ocean just offshore. So this, kind of wrapping this up, we could go back, but it seems like that some of the standards are broken. We're used a plant picker that was recommended by SMSWP, and that plant picker that would be used by the city of Sonoma for the turf for cash, that was missing all the palms. It's so poorly done, the plant picker, from the standard this public organization, SMSWP. So that's one of the things we found. But we thought we shouldn't mess with the city of Sonoma's plant trees list just not to make a ruckus.
If I may. So I think really in consultation with Ms. Mizuraka, we decided that this is not a city of Sonoma level discussion. This is something to take up with staff at the Saving Water Partnership. And really, take Leo's expertise and feed it into whatever process they might have moving toward an update of that tool, which is used region-wide. Because if it works if Leo has this critique that he's just started to explain to us here, and it's valid, they should know that, and it can be broadly implemented, and then we can continue to work in partnership with our other regional partners. It's probably not effective for us to do this at the city level because we are part of a much broader program. So
I would add one thing. I don't know whether it's good for Leo McCloskey to run into something like this and then decide that I'm going to go down and be a disruptor, because I don't think that's something I want to do. I don't want to be the great disruptor at this broken plant picker list.
So I think your feedback is probably worth registering, whether you decide you want to put the effort in that might take to push it over to a complete reformed version. That's up to you to decide independently. But I think just for our duty tonight as the ad hoc, we've had this discussion, we've documented, I think, to some satisfaction in the report, some of these observations. You've said some things tonight as well verbally into the public record. I think the burden now is relieved of the city on this matter. We can take it up to your
Exactly.
If you want to take it up with them, you may. We've gotten contact information for a person to speak with. But to bring back to the city's objectives of saving water, it really might come down to, if we have other resources we want to recommend in addition to those that are available through the partnership. If we want to participate in the urban water management plan update process, if we want to, what's the other one, is that in the water rate setting process, I'm sorry, I want to correct one thing though that Leo said, is that we didn't necessarily see any malfeasance in the program. What I don't have clear in my mind yet is how the accounting is actually accomplished. Jacob did confirm that the city of Sonoma does write checks, our finance department does write checks on out of city's accounts directly to applicants and verified participants in the Cash for Turf program. And we have a list of those people, and since 2007, there have been 407 participants in the program. 379,000 square feet of grass has been replaced. And that there was a budget allocated every year of about $25,000. One year it was, we blew out the budget and we needed to go to city council and get it raised. And so if you total up all those budget years, it was $465,000 over that period of time, of which we spent almost $300,000. So my question is that additional to the $135 we paid to the partnership that comes out of city coffers? Or is it somehow back charged through the partnership and we don't pay the partnership as much? That's an open question for me that I look forward to getting answered through the urban water management plan.
And I
update
wonder
process.
whether we finished, I mean, in a way, I wonder whether we need to dissolve our climate action committee on this water issue and kick it back to the city and see what you guys need.
I mean, what
So
I
I think
just,
the question is more about what is the Sonoma Marin Saving Watershed partnership? Because when we talk about partnerships in Sonoma Marin and participating in things, we pay a dollar amount. It doesn't mean that we are getting that dollar amount back for anything, right? It puts it into a pot and then we go after grants, or they may have other things that they do with it. You know, what I was looking at was, I know we got a grant for the turf program. So Jacobs has found that information, and part of what I want to do is just make sure that it can only be spent on the Cash for Turf, because I agree, the more diverse opportunities we have for water conservation, the better we are, right, with meeting those numbers. Leaky toilets. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted you all to look at this. Specifically, the Cash for Turf program also is, when I looked at the numbers last year, like 17,000 of the 50,000 budget or something like that was spent, and in my head I'm going, okay, how do they even know about this? And because I couldn't find anything, you know, that kind of thing. That's where in my head I go, all right, we need to do more education outreach, revamp this program and put it back out there again, just like years 1 and 2 when they're like, hey, we got this great new program, and then you see all this participation, right? So I feel like sometimes these programs get forgotten, and then we just need to revamp, repitch, and put it back out there again. And you know, that's my mode right now with a lot of these things. That's why I was saying, like, even with the property owners, of just trying to remind them, I'm repitching these old rules, reminding everybody these are opportunities. So that's your next goal that I have for you is around that. As far as the trees and landscaping and things like that, that is something that is on my list, including the Wheelo update. I need to get through a general plan. So, and then once I have that general plan, you know, the urban forestry management plan is on my list, as well as updating our landscape ordinances, because we need more guidance in the landscape ordinances to help guide people to make water smart decisions. So not just state law saying we need to do Wheelo, we need to help them. What does that mean?
I would say this, if you get to if anything I said resonated tonight, if you needed a kind of engineering, big, you know, hard science approach to this, something simple too, I could help you if you wanted to put it out to a consulting firm. We could ask for something specifically having to do with evapotranspiration and Copen Geiger, and we want to get something in this area.
That is something that, as a commission, is like identified from the science perspective. That's going to be whoosh over my head just as much as plants are. my idea is, as a user, right, of a code and helping to, a property owner put their landscaping in, or helping the landscape architect understand what they can do. For me, it's about what are the plants that are acceptable, what are those specific values that we are going to look for in the table for what they're presenting to us. In my mind, it's like lighting, like what's the Kelvin, what's the lumens, how many are we doing? Those are the things, like, that's the only science that I care about is what's my numbers, what's the amount. Are we ready to move on from water?
Yeah.
Tom has a comment,
No,
and I have
thank you.
a
I
final
appreciate the
comment.
discussion, and I agree that we work on the urban water management plan update. We use that planning process to drive our program implementation. And just to make sure it's clear, I think Leo and I are going to continue on this ad hoc to, speak to some people at the partnership level, and may have a further report for you at the next meeting.
Yeah, and like you were doing the person is Ashley when it comes to that and for this grant and everything. So I don't want to bombard her though, because she's got a lot on her plate. So working through Jacob to help get information and things like that, so that we're all staying on top of it. I've already told Public Works that we're looking at how to revamp the program. And so obviously they have to approve anything so that they make sure that it's compliant with their grant and is actually implementable.
Exactly. That's why I wanted the report to be as concise as it could be at this point, and continuing to make it clear that we are here to support Public Works in the implementation of that contract and toward our objective, to achieving our objectives as well.
Mm-hmm.
As we come to the end of this water discussion, I would simply add that there's an interesting opportunity for rainwater capture and water utilization at the City Corporation Yard building on A Street East that at some point deserves further exploration, that can become an important model for effective rainwater capture and use. There are a lot of uses of water at that facility that do not require potable water, including, I would add, the electric-operated street sweeper that's now using potable water. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have it all entirely green, since it's an electric vehicle, but by putting rainwater captured into it instead of treated potable water on our streets? I'm sure the streets love to have that additional facility. But that's a piece to look at some point in the future for significant water capture and reuse, and as a model for other such facilities around, including the county building immediately next door.
Is that building a recycled water customer?
Say again, Tom?
Does the Corporation Yard have access to recycled water?
Not to my knowledge. I believe they're using, at the moment, regular water, treated water. The idea is to capture rainwater into tankage and use it untreated for a variety of uses, including the one I just mentioned, and the washing of a lot of other vehicles, as well as related some of the stormwater capture that would happen at the same time you go to tankage. It's a large roof that would fit nicely for rainwater capture, based on initial perspectives by an expert. So unless there's anything else on water, we could move to the, I think it's the E&O presentation. Yes?
Okay,
Is that
going,
a yes?
we can move on to carbon sequestration and
Education and
trees.
outreach got,
We're gonna go back to that one in a second. We're going,
I see, we're still in that prior
we're going
action
back
item.
and
We're flip-flopping,
yep,
flopping, sorry.
we're
Been a
flipping and
long day.
flopping. So as far as the C section, we guys have done a lot of research around a lot of these, and so as far as staff goes, we're mostly in the mode of looking at completing our tree inventory and canopy analysis. So we have a contract that was approved by City Council, and so we're looking at kicking that off this summer. We don't have an exact date yet, but they got really busy, so now it's looking like summer and completion in the fall with that inventory and canopy analysis. With that, they are going to provide recommendations on locations for tree plantings. And then also with that analysis of the trees that we have, so all the different types and health of those trees, we'll probably provide some more recommendations around that as well, of the tree aspects. And then from there, go into the next phase of doing the urban forestry management plan, depending on funding and the need of how much money is still remaining in our budget, but then how much more we would need to complete that. Again, that urban forestry management plan is going to help set our policy direction so that we can update our ordinance, create our incentives, and identify penalties, because that's kind of the big one right now. And then also replacement costs. So if we don't have the space to actually plant the number of trees, what is that cost to plant and replace a tree in another location that would be provided to the city? We used to collect fees. I think we started trying to collect fees again, but we're looking closer at that. And then that'll help also identify what, if we go for Tree City, or as discussed by the commission, other designations that aren't as costly, what those opportunities would be around that. And that is going to conclude our list that we have. We are working, last one is the carbon offset program. We're working with Bayron and RCPA on the regional program for VMT mitigation measures and collecting fees, and then creating programs around those that are county-based, because as we know, we can't fix it by ourselves, and so how do we work together where we can actually implement some of these measures? And that's that.
And with every passing day, we get closer to 2030 and our goal of net zero, which becomes important from a carbon offset perspective unless we achieve net zero through VMT and related carbon reductions, which I find increasingly unlikely with the lack of external large amounts of potential support from the federal government. Vice Chair Conlon.
Forgive me, I left one thing off of my water discussion that's kind of important. I didn't specifically reference it in the report, but I did learn at the RCPA meeting last week that the Bayron Water Upgrades SAVE program is it's an on-bill financing program so that you can make water efficiency improvements in your own property, and it's available in a select number of jurisdictions in Sonoma County, and it may be one way to help people pay for upgrades to their landscaping equipment and things like that. So it's something else we're going to be looking at quite closely, hoping that maybe we could participate in that program at the city level.
Our RCPA meeting is on Monday, so we'll find out more then.
We're moving on now to E&O. Yes.
I'll take this on, since
Amber,
yeah.
you're on.
Okay, I'm not going to go through everything in that first half, because it's basically just a nice little synopsis of what our biggest thing was that our ad hoc did from our last meeting, which was the Earth Day event at the Sebastiani Theater on April 26th. It was nice. We were able to get our faces and our goals out to the public, talk to people about what we're doing. I know some of us spoke with people in the community after who I think really appreciated it. So I think there was a bit of a call to action. We had a table set up. I think we can do better with the paperwork that we have out there, and that'll be just our learning curve as an ad hoc, as a commission of what we really want to present to the public. But I think this was a good first run of being out in the public and what we're about. So looking forward to doing more of these. Something that we had discussed is potentially getting out there for the city party, or if there's any Tuesday market opportunities. And our discussion should probably be, instead of just being the Climate Action Commission, and just because, I mean, we just went through a 9-page list of our priorities. We need to focus and also just be open and hear what, because we talked about how we need this to be community engagement. That was one of our biggest goals as an education and outreach ad hoc. So also just being there to listen to what the public is interested in, what they want to see and hear. So we would like to continue to be out there in the public, and we just need to figure out what that focus would look like. And if we do want to be at a Tuesday market or at the city party, what we need to do and what that would look like for us as a commission. What else? Other next steps for us, obviously, now that we got through that, continuing to audit the website, which, based on what we talked about tonight, I think should also discuss our cash for turf, trying to highlight that more so, since that seems to be a present issue. I made a note of that. And just going through our processes of, I think Norma was touching on that at the beginning, who we communicate with and how we present ourselves, and making sure we include the right people in any communications. As a result of this event that we just did, we had a spot with KSVY, Ronnie, who I think is back there right now. It was a great conversation, really enjoyed listening to it, and we're hoping that maybe that's something, whether it just be as private citizens caring about the climate, or maybe it's something we can talk about and present to the commission as a commission-based partnership. We'd love to maybe see that continue as well, just to at least get the word out that we want climate action in our community.
Yeah, and those who listen to KSVY that they know, but otherwise, we did have a conversation afterwards about our regular ongoing climate communication through KSVY. And now that I'm back, and I will be happy to follow up, and would encourage other members of the E&O team to keep us within the number of 3 questions about E&O, past, present, and welcome back to Sonoma.
The other thing I want to add to our list is this event was fun to put together, but it was a lot of work, and David and Amber are amazing. We had 200 people about. But I really think we need to look at volunteers, because we can't do this work without more resources. And how do we do that? You know, it's one thing to partner with, like, the Valley of the Moon gardeners, but we're really talking about very specific volunteers that are passionate about climate action. And how do we manage that? You know, when I lived in Atherton, we created an organization called ADAPT, and basically that was Atherton Disaster Preparation and Training. And we got the name of every resident and their email in town, put them in a map and blocks, and had street coordinators, 7,500 people. And that's flourishing today. And that's how we reached out directly to the citizens. But that wasn't a city effort. We had to take that on ourselves and carry all that liability. I see we need something. We are a trusted messenger, so we can bring people in to help, because this ain't enough. And I'd really like us to think about that. It is, how do we enroll people? How do we get them on a list so we can start working with them? And we really need a volunteer section, so we can have someone constantly inspiring and igniting and working on some of these city projects.
So there's two different things. There's one is there's city initiatives, city projects that we were talking about, and educating people around those, and you know, that's where we come in with helping with doing community meetings or getting you tabled at Tuesday Night Market with the other nonprofit groups. Because I'll do that sometimes if I have a project or something, or spreading the word. It's how we did when the compost buckets were available and Travis was there to hand them out. This is where I'm going with, like, when there's city things, city initiatives, spreading the word, offering things to pick up. Those are the things that I was thinking of. The big events, I think we're better off if it's not a city event to find our host. Helping, because we want to help, help them as the host, and that nonprofit is the volunteer leader and the volunteer getter. The reason why I always say I stress the value of partnerships is because city government can't do as much as nonprofits can. And so as government, I'm always limited by what we can do based on our funding availability or staff time or things like that. And that's when organizations can help spread that word, or hold an event, or like we be a part of their speaker series, or those types of things where we're sharing that information, because of those limitations that we have in government side of things. So for the big things is what I'm saying. For those, I got a grant one year when I was a young planner, and I partnered for every single event with an organization to help spread the word on that organization for that event tied to historic preservation, because that was the grant was for historic preservation, but I had somebody come in and talk about how historic preservation is sustainability, and I had a speaker specifically for that. I had funding for that speaker to come speak, and then I partnered with the local sustainability nonprofit to help spread the word, because I knew that was my audience, right, for that group. And so that's where I go with our partners and being who the audience are. All those are really great partners. And then some of them have more of that volunteer base to do the work too. So we may not just be the lead every time.
That's what it really sounds like, most in every case.
Unless it's a like what we were talking about, like the compost buckets, or like, if we revamp the Cash for Turf, having, we can have staff there. If you guys want to volunteer there, help spread the word, right? And that's where I was going with also, like, you guys are all part of different organizations, different interest groups and different things, and how do we continue to spread the word about different things with these one-pagers you're going to create and
Tom, please.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback and the thoughts. I agree. I think that events are difficult and best to partner, and that we should focus on our, at this commission, refining our calls for action and then having our small set of things that we produce, our collateral, and then we can let our partners distribute it for us. If there is a specific call to action, like the Cash for Turf participation, we can hammer that. We can decide what are our priorities for a particular year, and we can hammer on those things.
So, David, so to follow this up, what would be excellent is if each of our commissioners would create a list of the nonprofits that you work closely with or that you know well, and provide the name of the executive director, their email and cell number to the EO. We can start to build a list of people we can disseminate information from. It would require that, for example, Leo, let's say you gave me 8 names. What I would do is send you copy that you would send off to these 8 executive directors saying how we would like to partner with them, with the Climate Action Commission. And we'd like to be able to send you information that we would appreciate you sending on to your constituency. So I've been doing that with my own, passions and relationships. But I think as we look at the ad hocs we're in and the relationships we have, legal relationships of maybe nonprofits that you're working with that want to get involved into something or want to know what's going on, really look at what you are an SME about and look at who your nonprofit ED relationships are with and start sending them to Amber and I. And we'll put together an Excel list of CAC relationships that we use to call upon when we need to share information or acquire volunteers, etc. So let's create a database for that.
Thank you. Great idea. I would note that the April 26th event, of course, was a lot of work, and I thank my colleagues and the members of the community. And from the nonprofit perspective, I especially thank the Sonoma Ecology Center for their involvement in that event. Going forward, I think things like tabling will become important, and we can certainly focus on that. I have every reason to believe that over the next few months, the E&O team will acquire a high-level community expert who has told us that perhaps he or she could be available starting in June for significant support. And so at our next meeting, hopefully, if that happens, we could be a little more open about who he or she is and move forward from that perspective. But I think we're now on the map as a Climate Action Commission in ways we weren't perhaps before the April 26th meeting. And we recognized Earth Day in the context of the evolving efforts on climate here locally as an important time to make our presence more evident than it had been through the publicity to date. So I thank everybody who is involved in that, in making that happen, and I think it sets a tone that we can continue to be active in the community through tabling and similar events, presentations to places like Rotary Club and other outreach to individual elements of the community.
I do have one question, and I hope it doesn't open a can of worms or something, but we do want a table. That is something that's important to us. Is that something that we need official commission approval to put our Climate Action Commission name on it?
Now, this would be more of a city table that you guys would help, present the information that we're presenting as, here are the programs that you're promoting that we've already adopted and been approved by City Council. So you're just helping us be there. be a face. So it'd be a city table.
And with whom would the E&O team work explicitly at city level to start having that happen? Would
So
that
if-
be directly with Lisa Jensen or through you and Jacob, or how do you want us to proceed
It
as
would
an
be
E&O?
through, yeah, it would be through Jacob and I, because I still have to submit it as if I was a member of the public. I still have to submit the form to ask for space, so it's not any different
I've done a lot
for
of
us.
work with Lisa over the years, so
Yeah, I send it to Jerry now, but yeah, so, I mean, it's the same idea. So like if there's certain ones that were ready to go, then we just ask for that space. I don't know if you were at the last Tuesday night market, but it's all the tables that are facing City Hall that are in front of the pond. Those are all, that's the nonprofit row, and that's where the city goes. So,
Yeah, I think we should, we had said last meeting we were gonna focus on website, and I'm guilty of not providing you with anything. And yet, I think that if we could just get our website content squared away between now and the next meeting, to really focus on that, and to focus on the one pager or trifold brochure, or whatever's gonna be that primary collateral piece for the commission, for this year, because we might update it over time. Those would be the priorities I would really like to see come together with the E&O right now. And the only, I know it's late, but the other thing I think is worth mentioning is the similar thing has come up at the Climate Action Advisory Committee at the county level. And someone wanted to have the committee publish a newsletter every 2 months with a different theme. And there was a big discussion about the benefits of that, and there was a department in Southern California that was doing that fairly successfully. The decision that we all came to around the table is that content production is really difficult. And that it is probably better for us to do sound bites. Tonight we've updated one another on the things that we're doing. There's a lot of richness in that update. If we could come up with a way of summarizing, you know, maybe it's in our report format, an agenda that we put together is like, what's your update in a public digestible soundbite fashion? That's something that could become a update to the city newsletter that is an output of this committee. But that is, I think that's a secondary set of content production for us to think about at future meetings, not between now and just getting the website and a basic central piece done. Those are some thoughts on that.
I think you're right too. Just, I mean, what's the point of tabling if, you know, we put a QR code out there and then the website is not how we want it to be anyway, and not help learn what we're doing.
Having a presence there, being seen, makes a difference in terms of people learning that, oh my gosh, 2030 is coming. So just the presence is there, the handouts are important. The being seen as opposed to being forgotten is an element of this whole process. Anything else on the E&O discussion before we close it out? Going once, twice, I think it's closed out. So the next item I see is the budget discussion. And jet lag tells me that I have no idea who's leading that. Tom, is that you?
That's me, and Amber and I are that ad hoc, and we did meet with the city. I guess the two of us met with Jacob and Jennifer once, and then I also participated in the chairs and vice chairs committee meeting, and we talked briefly. I talked briefly with David Guin about this ad hoc as well. The report just simply kind of captures what climate budgeting is. That is, how do we take our aspirational long set of goals and get it to actually happen? And so the first step toward that was this attempt to, what I was trying to do is pull together the things that we're already spending money on. And these are the things I think we're spending money on. And that I have, it's, where there's not an actual budget there, it is a placeholder cell to, for discussion purposes. And the only ones that I think I've nailed down hard dollar numbers with are, as we've discussed before, the cost for up Evergreen is about $13,000 a year, as was reported to us by the Sonoma Clean Power rep. And then 135, as I said earlier, about the the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership. I was able to verify that with public reports. But as I said, I don't know if where the grant fits into that and how that, if that's included or if it's not. If it's, and how much, whether there's additional city funds that are required to run cash for turf. And I guess there is probably a bit of labor involved in writing a check, but if it's only 3 so far this year, it's probably not worth tracking. And then that's it. I've only got those $2 numbers. Was there another one in here? On hold. Oh, that's the sustainability coordinator position. So I threw this together hopefully for the benefit of Jennifer and David and the finance director to all be talking together about how this might either, whether it's possible to take a stab at this in this current budget cycle, or if not, to basically be explicit in this budget cycle, to maybe give us guidance on how we can contribute to clarity around what we're spending at the City of Sonoma on climate-related activities.
So the tree inventory is 65, and then some contingency, 1,000 for this year. The AMI program was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we can help you find some of these numbers too. I can't remember, we do have a number associated with the public transit expansion. Not the expansion that we're looking for, but just the already what we pay for the free fare. And then obviously the Go Sonomas we talked about today, what that number was looking like. The position is on hold, but Jacob luckily has an interest and a background in environmental science. So, and then our participation in SCTCA, which is the new name, you threw me off there. So RCPA and STC is like $25,000 a year or something to participate. It's again a partnership. That's kind of the way things work these days. Is when you do these big groups and collaborate, you kind of pay your fair share, kind of thing, and help support the bigger organization. So we pay into that as well. But you know, we're trying to do as much as participation in things that don't cost anything too.
Right, and we understand that. And the question is, how are we going to accomplish our commission's objectives if we don't have resources to be able to do so? And so if, and that's what climate budgeting is all about. So, you know, we're a small city, we're doing this, building this plane as we're flying it, but it it is a good discipline for us to start thinking in this direction, I believe. And it was great to have Mike here tonight and to kind of have that discussion. And I just look forward to doing more of this over the course of this budget cycle and next year. So thank you.
Excellent start, thank you. A long way to go to put some real numbers besides these blanks, but that's how you get started and you move forward, and understanding that, and obviously we're not going to get to our 2030 goals without spending some real resources of both people's time on this commission and staff and elsewhere, and some dollars that go with it. So the next item that I see has to do with, if we're done with 3.2, there's nothing on there. We're moving into 3.3, the meeting change request for the November meeting. We have an official annual set of meetings, and that one caused trouble with at least one commissioner, and so we're open to a different date in November.
So I have provided you 4 dates that do not have conflicts with other city meetings that are within the same time frame. Are those feasible? It's in.
It's in the agenda with some alternate dates for 6, 10, and 11 of November.
It may be easier for scheduling purposes to do the first week so we don't get so close to Thanksgiving and holiday events.
Is it 11th or 10th?
I'd suggest the 4th.
These dates all work for me, though 10 and 11 get really close to the 12th, so I would go with either 4 or 6.
Yeah, I can't do the Friday.
I don't see a Friday. I'm in
November 6th is a Friday.
It's a Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the
Thursday
wrong
on
year.
my calendar.
Sorry,
No stories allowed, but
sorry.
4 and 6,
I'm living in the future.
you got another year up.
So 11 is, sorry, I put 11, but it's actually Veterans Day, so it's close, we're close. So 4 or 6, or it sounded like 4 was the proposal on the table right
Four's
now?
okay
I
with
think
me.
4
Yeah,
and
4's
6 were
okay.
both still on the table. Shall we take a show of hands about 4 or 6, or? November 4, hands up. That's
All right.
it looks like
Great.
a winner. I hope it works for Dr. Nathan, Commissioner Nathan, but we will let her know. Is it an election day somewhere? November 4th often is.
I don't think we do
Do we
this anymore,
care?
do we?
Do we do those anymore? Philip says I'm being too political. Thank you for noticing. Okay. So, do we need a vote on this, or was just, that was sufficient to move us to the 4th? Thank you all for your understanding of, some of us have other commitments.
Yep, good.
So, director comments and announcements is the next piece of the puzzle for us as we move along with great rapidity at 8:30.
Quickly, I am going to call the general plan ad hoc committee meeting probably early June, once I have the actual document for the section that will be talking mostly about the green and blue infrastructure. So the goal was to get that document to me by the end of the month, so we'll be hopefully ready to move forward.
Can you remind us who's on that ad hoc?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I had offered to be on it, but I don't know if there was room and so on. So it all happened kind of quickly, or at least in my memory.
There was room. I did add you.
Okay, thank you. Natalie, do you have
And from what was in the minutes last time, it's Commissioner Nathan, Commissioner Heinerman, and then
And then you asked to be on it.
excellent, all right. So that's where we are. You get my pleasure. I'll try to be equally political. I'm sure it's unanimous approval.
All right. And then also, I think this fits within what we talk about with climate action and sustainability is the repair fair is coming to the community center on Sunday. So if you have any items that you need fixed, this is your opportunity to bring them and have people help you. So yeah, they did a really great job. It's an organization.
Where is it located?
Community Center on Saturday, 10 to 1.
Oh, yeah, community center.
And it's free.
Excellent price.
If you want something repaired, they are asking for you to sign up. And then you can also drop off clean clothing in good condition.
Actually, you can't anymore. Refill Madness just said they are full for clothing. So you can shop for clothes for freezies at that event.
Okay, well,
And
so
you
much
can
for me
also,
bringing my clothes.
you can drop off clothing often at Bon Marché out on the west side as well.
Oh, we have a lot, yeah. Okay, that was it from me.
Good. Let's turn to commissioner reports and comments next. That's item 5 on our agenda. Commissioners, do we want to just start on my right? Commissioner Fogelberg, anything to report this evening?
I have no comment.
Oh, I'm stunned. No, I'm pleased. Vice Chair Conlon?
Yes.
I'm just looking.
Yes, I have
Right.
a couple of things.
I'm not surprised.
Of course. I just wanted to mention, you guys probably already know about this, but the Energy Code Ace Plan Check Support Pilot Program has been launched. Anna Olivia at the county suggested that we might have someone on staff that would be appropriate for that training. It's targeted to plans examiners and building inspectors. It's to help, it's free training that gets people up to speed in state-of-the-art code compliance in California. And it's a great, historically, I was associated with this program years and years ago, great level of sophisticated training. And so it's a good opportunity. It's, I think, a 11-month-long mentoring program, 10 hours per month. So it's a bit of a commitment of time, but it does give you credentialing at the end of the process, and basically it makes you super wonky about energy code. So hoping, who is our plans examiner? Is that Jacob or is that somebody else?
Our plans examiner is actually a contract with 4-Leaf, so they do all of that for us. And then we in-house have a building official and an inspector.
All right, so, well, for your decision then as to whether it makes sense, but it's a great way to take somebody and move them up skill set wise as well. And then the other question was the BC CAPS at the county at RCPA was talking about an update to the ClearPath software that we used to do the municipal greenhouse gas inventory several years ago, and that he's going to be looking at that and whether it's suitable for his use, I think, to keep maintaining the countywide community inventory, not the municipal, but the community greenhouse gas inventory. And the question I had was, is that something we might want to think about here, updating our municipal inventory? And we kind of skipped over it, but the government buildings list that Amber and I had worked on as an ad hoc last year, that was another one of the set of things that came up in the questions, is what's the status of those municipal building improvements. I know we've gotten a bunch of all kinds of great things have happened in the buildings, but are there still opportunities that were recommended that haven't been gotten to yet? And is there a need for grant money for some of that, for example?
That is an Chris Pegg question as our facilities manager, and I know that that's something that I had a recent conversation with him about when Bayron or the county came out and did the assessment and what's on the list and things to do, because I know Travis worked a lot on that list. So I think it's just something that we could bring back up and look at with Chris when he has a moment.
Understood.
Yeah.
I just trying to get a sense for who's on, who's doing what, and where I can direct these things most efficiently. So, thank you. That's all for me.
Next, Philip, any comments to close it out? Amber? Leo?
The
You're on.
only thing that came up about 45 days ago was the average temperature of the Earth is now past 1.6. I mean, it's accelerating. We're heading for 1.7. So that's, yeah, it's going to be hot 2030.
In the interests of my grandchildren, that is not good news. And all of us are responsible one way or another, and we're all trying to do what we can through commissions like this and all the extra energies of, events and other work that we're all doing to try to make a difference. Any other commissioner comments this evening?
You know what, I forgot, now that we're talking about
Amber.
the future.
There you go, yep.
And I meant to bring it up in my report. Alina's not here, so I didn't have her face to remind me, but she and her student volunteers were stellar. So the future is golden. They were really, really wonderful.
They were indeed terrific, as were my colleagues in putting that event together. Another commissioner comment has appeared. No, you didn't get skipped.
So I want to acknowledge Jana at Refill Madness. I went over to the charter school that her kids went to, and they have started a huge composting and recycling program. They have a green team. So I took photographs of the green team and thanked everybody, and I'm going to write an article. And one of the things on my list is to make good friends with our local journalists and editors so that they would put this in the paper. So if the city has relationships with anyone, it's just good to know who they are, because I can always reach out to that person or any of you if you have journalistic or editorial relationships. Just let me know. So I'm going to write it on one of my flights. So it'll be a couple weeks out, but they were fabulous.
This is a rumor, but I just got an email that they'd recently been let go. Our journalists. The newspaper's been sold, and I just heard that last week they canceled the contract, and I think they got, I'm not kidding, I haven't verified it, but it's an email that I received saying that's what reporters are saying.
Who's they, just for the record?
The Press Democrat, the Sonoma Index Tribune, the North Bay Business Journal, all of those papers have been sold to the same outfit that operates, I think it's San Diego Union Tribune, the Denver paper, Riverside. Yeah, so we are into a new era.
Is that one of those conservative conglomerates?
It's the largest newspaper conglomerate in the country. I don't know what's editorial side. I can't say.
I think we're at a point where we can close the meeting. Thank my colleagues for and staff for an excellent event, and call a meeting to a close like so.